This is Lauren Boebert, Republican representative from Colorado's 4th District and quite possibly the dumbest member of Congress, past or present. She is often unaware of what she is talking about, and unaware of who exactly she is talking to. She is a staunch supporter of QAnon, having said in 2020, "Everything I've heard of Q, I hope that this is real because it only means America is getting stronger and better." In September 2019, Boebert aide and future campaign manager Sharana Bishop published a video on her Facebook page in which she interviewed a self-proclaimed member of the far-right group Proud Boys, which Bishop called pro-everything that makes America great, adding, "Thank God for you guys and the Proud Boys." In August 2021, the FEC investigated the apparent use of more than $6,000 from Boebert's 2022 re-election campaign funds for her personal expenses. The funds were used between May and June 2021 via 4 Venmo payments. Boebert was one of 14 House Republicans, most of them members of the Freedom Caucus, to vote against a measure condemning the Myanmar coup d'etat that passed overwhelmingly. She cited concern about a passage that urged social media platforms to prevent disinformation and violence, which she said was tantamount to making big tech the arbiter of truth. Boebert promotes the ideals of Christian nationalism. In June 2022, she told a church audience that the church is supposed to direct the government and that the separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. Boebert's office asserted she was not expressing support of Christian theocracy. Experts said her statement is contrary to the Constitution's First Amendment Establishment Clause, which states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. On September 10, 2023, Boebert and a male companion were removed by security staff from a performance of the musical Beetlejuice in a theater in Denver, Colorado, after she and her companion caused a disturbance by vaping, singing, recording the performance, and groping each other. But all of this pales in comparison to the utter lack of knowledge and professionalism she displays while on the job. Let's watch as she displays an utter misunderstanding of the Chevron doctrine.
The Supreme Court rightly overturned the Chevron doctrine, which the EPA relied on to support its very controversial and costly rulemakings. Since your agency has never been authorized by Congress and has since lost most legal standing, does your agency still plan to enable rogue bureaucrats to enact unconstitutional regulations?
I'm not quite sure I follow you. You're saying that...
I'm saying the Chevron doctrine was overturned by the Supreme Court.
We have no authority?
I'm saying you've never been authorized. Wait, hold on.
Congress doesn't delegate authority for us to do the regulations and the business and the policy. So since 1970...
So the Chevron doctrine, where you have created all of these rules under that have been proven to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, has been overruled. So now I'm asking, are your bureaucrats still going to implement these rulemaking processes?
You do know Chevron is not just focused on EPA.
But you are. So I'm asking about the EPA, and I'm asking about your rogue bureaucrats that have enacted these unconstitutional regulations. Are you going to repeal them? Are you going to continue to implement them, or are you going to stop altogether, since it's been overturned?
Do you understand the ruling?
Do you understand the ruling of the Supreme Court?
I do. And so your question is ill-formed. No.
Will you be
repealing? We're not going to stop.
So you're going to unconstitutionally continue with these rulemakings?
We're going to adhere to the Supreme Court and continue to do our...
So which rulemakings are you going to roll back?
We're going to adhere to the Supreme Court and continue to do our work in accordance to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court.
So which ones are you going to repeal?
The Supreme Court didn't tell us to repeal anything.
They have been deemed unconstitutional.
No.
Absolutely, they have. This was a huge victory. And, even in our appropriations bill in the House this year, the funding has been reduced by 20%. I would argue that it needs to be reduced by 100%.
Lauren Boebert really thought she was on to something while grilling EPA Administrator Michael Regan. What she didn't know, as per usual, is that she was making a complete fool of herself, as Representative Dan Goldman will highlight.
But I would just like to clarify a few things for my colleague from Colorado. The Loper-Bright ruling, as you know, said that the courts should not defer to agency rulemaking if a statute is ambiguous, and instead the courts get to determine whether or not what the statute means. Is that your understanding as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that would not require any regulations to be reversed or overturned, correct?
Correct.
Goldman is 100% correct here. The recent SCOTUS ruling repealing the 1984 Chevron doctrine says nothing about repealing laws and regulations that are already in effect while simultaneously deeming them unconstitutional. While still a disastrous decision, the recent Chevron decision sends disputes in legal interpretations of regulatory statutes to lower courts instead of relying on the agency's interpretation of the law.
And here she is getting a lesson on basic constitutional law from Democratic Representative from Maryland, Jamie Raskin.
So, Jamie Raskin ended up schooling Lauren Boebert on the Constitution in a hearing about adding a citizenship question to the 2030 census.
It is past time we put America and Americans first. Joe Biden and his regime are shelling out benefits to illegal immigrants like Oprah Winfrey on her show. Everyone gets a vote. Everyone gets recognized, even if you're here illegally. In New York, aliens are receiving $53 million in free prepaid debit cards. In Denver, Colorado, aliens get 6 free months of housing. And now they want to hand them seats in Congress to buy their lifelong allegiance to the Democrat Party. There are now at least 16.8 million illegal aliens living in the United States, enough to account for roughly 22 seats in the House of Representatives. Including these aliens in the apportionment of congressional districts impacts representation in Congress and undermines the constitutional principle of one person, one vote. Americans deserve to have their voices fully represented, not diluted by illegal aliens.
Thank you kindly, and it's always delightful to hear my friend from Colorado speak. One thing that I do want to point out, however, because there might be some students in the gallery today, is that there can be no illegal aliens and there can be no green card holders in Congress, because the Constitution very clearly specifies that you must have been a citizen for 7 years before you run for the House, and you must have been a citizen for 9 years before you run for the Senate, and you must be a born U.S. citizen in order to run for president of the United States, which some of the historians, as I think I mentioned before, attribute to Thomas Jefferson trying to write Alexander Hamilton out of the presidential sweepstakes. In any event, I think that my colleagues should probably relax with some of the hyperbole and exaggeration here. After all we're saying is let's keep doing what we've done since 1790 in the country. This is the way that the census and the reapportionment have always been run in the United States of America, and what they're proposing is obviously a radical departure from what the Constitution ordains.
Now, of course, you'd think that she would already know all of this, but, you know, we live in a time where you don't need to know anything about anything to be anybody, you know.
And here as she confuses political consultant and lobbyist, Roger Stone, with filmmaker Oliver Stone.
Mr. Stone, you wrote a book accusing LBJ of being involved in the killing of President Kennedy. Did these most recent releases confirm or negate your initial charge? Being involved in the assassination of President Kennedy.
No, I didn't. In the film, if you look closely, there's no such statements. No, I didn't. If you
Yes,
look
sir.
closely at the film, there's no. It accuses the President Johnson
Okay.
of being part of a complicit in a cover-up of the case, but not in the assassination itself, which I don't know.
What do you think that he was complicit with? Yes, sir. I'll get to you.
The cover-up. Well, how about, for starters, appointing Alan Dulles, the head of the CIA, who was fired by Kennedy, to the commission itself, to the Warren Commission, and he goes to almost every meeting, and he's pretty much in charge of the Warren Commission from the beginning. Alan Dulles. That's part of the evidence that points to President Johnson's either incompetence or involvement.
Mr. Morley, I think you had something to add on that.
I think you're confusing Mr. Oliver Stone with Mr. Roger Stone.
Stated it yet.
Who?
No, sorry.
It's Roger Stone who implicated LBJ in the assassination of the president. It's not my friend
Is that what all the
Oliver
whispers
Stone.
were there? I may have misinterpreted that, and I apologize for that. But there seems to be some alluding of, like you said, incompetence or some sort of involvement there on the back end. And so sorry, I'm going to move on. Mr. Morley, I would like to talk more about the CE 399 and this file. I want the American people to know what's in there, that what was recently released, how that lines up to this, and how we could get more clarity there.
I'm not familiar with the number that you mentioned.
This is America. Do not comply. Resist.